Awesome. Hey, everybody. Greg Hine here. We are live with one of the first episodes of the Aviation Growth Podcast. Today, I have with me Stuart and Roberto from Bluetail. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Hi,
How's
Greg.
everything going?
Doing well. Just had a nice three-day weekend, and all rested up, ready for another big week at Bluetail.
Awesome. Well, so, Stuart, Roberto, can you give me give us a little bit of an intro into who you guys are and maybe a little bit of a high-level overview about what Bluetail is all about?
All right. Well, okay, I'll go first. So
whoever wants to go first,
I'll jump in.
Don't fight for it.
I'll just drink coffee the whole time.
All right, that works.
Yeah, he's good at that. Yeah. So Stuart, Illian. Let's see a little bit on my background. A little bit of aviation tech, I guess, would be the best way to kind of describe me. Been in and out of aviation, actually. I was in Civil Air Patrol actually early on after the Boy Scouts. That was kind of my first entrance into aviation, and then got into flight training. I went through UND's program, great program. Ultimately transferred to Ohio State, where I got my commercial instrument, but ultimately decided I really liked the business side of aviation. So worked for Deloitte out of school, had TWA as a client out of Kansas City, and ultimately ended up in California, and had a couple different roles there, but found myself in tech. Went to Apple. That was in 1989. Those were the Scully years. If anybody remembers John Scully, kind of between jobs. Let's see, no pun intended. But that's where I met Berto. Berto and I met in 89 and developed kind of a really good friendship at that point. So I just dated myself. That's over 30 years. And we've collaborated on a number of projects since we met. He can talk a little bit more about that. But let's see, left Apple, did the .com thing for a couple of years when that was going crazy. That was the last iteration. Actually helped take a company public called Zoom. It was the first Zoom with an X. No one probably remembers them, but we actually were purchased by GE at some point, became NBC Internet. So that was really a wild ride. Really wanted to get back into aviation. And bought a flight school in Southern California, which was Flight Crew Systems. It's now called Loft, a big training facility down there. And sold my interest in that company. Went to another company called ProFlight with a great guy, Caleb Taylor. And we had a simulator play as well. And we ultimately were purchased by Textron, became True. If you guys know True, there's actually a training center not too far from you guys up in Lutz. Which was one of the satellite facilities. So really love that business, and and ultimately left there and worked for an operator for a while, and that's when I kind of worked my way out to Phoenix, and Berto and I decided to collaborate on Bluetail. I'll tell you a little bit more about just that history, but that's just a little bit on my background. Berto, maybe you can talk a little about yourself.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead. Let it rip. Give us a little bit of a background.
I have quite an extensive background in aviation.
Okay.
Goose egg. Two years ago, Stuart, who as he mentioned, I met him at Apple, and I fell in love with technology and usability. At my days at Apple, and since 2000, this is my fourth tech startup. I've had two successes, one failure. Learned probably more in the failure than I did in the successes. And I've been in fintech SaaS and healthcare SaaS, and started one of the first marketing automation SaaS platforms in 1999.
Okay.
It was sold twice. So I've built some platforms before. They've been successful, but what got me really intrigued about Bluetail was I hadn't worked with Stuart in many years. We sat on each other's boards in a couple of these startups, and him and I have always had a really good vision for product and how we were really, always focusing on the customer, building the product. A lot of people don't know this, but at Apple, we spent, millions and millions of dollars on focus groups and talking to customers and let's face it, they didn't invent they didn't invent the smartphone, they didn't invent the music player, they didn't invent the computer, but they designed them elegantly and made the best interfaces in the world. And
Sure.
Stuart and I have picked that up, and we're striving really hard to make Bluetail follow that model of elegance in design and usability. And we're not there, but I'm just happy to work with Stuart. I've learned a ton about aviation. The people in the space are above board. They're incredible. The vision and where we can take not only what we're doing with aircraft records, but the industries. It's all up right now. So I'm happy to be part of it.
That's awesome. So you guys both have, a long history of building businesses, long history of technology. Stuart, you have a little bit more history in the aviation space, but Roberto, you're getting up to speed, and now you guys have come together. I guess has it been 12 months now, 18 months? When did you guys kick off Bluetail? And
Yeah.
so
So and then you asked a little bit earlier kind of what it is. So I'll give you a little bit on that too. So let's see. I think we launched in the middle of COVID. Quite honestly, it was 2020, May of 2020. Berto and I had this decision, because we'd been working on the product, we'd been developing it for over a year. We'd written the spec, 18 months prior, and been talking about it. Should we do this? Should we launch? And at some point, I've said this before. If you've got a great idea and you got faith in what you're doing, you just got to get it out there, which is what we did. So we threw it out there with some press and got some customers on the system, and it turned out that was really the right call, because we could have waited another 2 years and we'd still be sitting on our hands, which isn't a good place to be when you're an entrepreneur. So what's Bluetail? So at a high level, we're a back to birth aircraft records company, and the whole idea is to complement what you would see, say, like in maintenance tracking apps, where they have a certain function that they do, around tracking life limited parts and projecting maintenance and all that kind of stuff. But no one really thinks about just the whole records piece, because, and this is something that shocked Berto, is just all of the paper and analog records that are still in the world of business aviation, which you would expect maybe for a 30-year-old hawker, right? But for brand new, Bombardier 7500, 650ER Gulfstream, you wouldn't expect to see things on flash drives or scanned paper. So the whole idea is to just do a historical build of all those records. It's not the sexiest part of business aviation, going out and grabbing 10 bankers boxes and getting those scanned and then getting those organized and indexed and upload and making them searchable. But that's the whole idea of Bluetail, is grabbing all those records, putting them in the cloud. We host through AWS. We use a lot of their tools, making those records searchable, shareable. And there's a lot of different pieces in the app, and we can talk about more where we're going. But that's just the basics of it right there. And we've got a North American footprint. We're expanding all that, but that's the basic premise behind Bluetail. And just real quick on the value, it's protection. It's protection of those records which aren't insured. A lot of people don't know that. You can insure the airplane, you can't insure the logs, which, if you lose those, how catastrophic that is, or they get damaged. So it's protection, and it's having those records available for what we call critical events. Whether that's a major inspection coming up or an alteration. Maybe you're selling the airplane. Maybe you're a 135 operator. You've got a conformity coming up. You've got an audit. You've got an Argus or a Wyvern or his bail audit coming up. It's perfect for those kinds of scenarios where it really does save you time and money and makes your life a lot easier. Berto, did I miss anything?
Yeah, just the silliness of it. Like we have this phrase, Greg, that we turn paper records into gold. And it's silly, but when Stuart told me about the opportunity, and just going back to the COVID thing, the one thing about maturity or experience is we've seen a lot of cycles, economic cycles.
Sure.
And after you go through a few cycles, you realize that a lot of the great new disruptors come from that bottom part of the economic cycle where times are struggling. That's where a lot of ideas are created and generated. And we were thinking it was a really tough time around COVID, but we were like, no, this is the time to do it. This is, you know, let's go out, raise money. Let's provide some hope. Let's change a category in the industry that really isn't being addressed, because technically, Greg, I mean, as you know, you couldn't do what we're doing 5 years ago. There just wasn't the tools out there. And so when Stuart and I started talking about, you know, paper records, we started looking into and talking to a lot of technologists. We have a data scientist advisor in Austin, and we just said, look, we think we can literally take the words off these pages and really make them useful for DOMs and AMPs and for pilot owners, and that's what we're doing. We have just touched the surface, Greg, on where we really want to go with this, and they may be dots on a page, but we can take them and make magic out of them. I won't do the spirit fingers, but
well, you know, you know, the way that I look at it is, you know, obviously, you know, COVID is a really tough time to launch a new business. You know, all of the difficulties about travel and face-to-face and, you know, uncertainties in this industry. You know, people in the, you know, obviously we're starting to see an uptick in activity and things look like they're going back in the right direction. But last year there was a lot of uncertainty about, you know, where was this all going and how long would we be in this state of, you know, not flying, and, you know, getting in and actually getting in with operators is probably you know, somewhat of a tall order. But it looks like you guys have made it work. But, you know, looking at it, it could be kind of the perfect time to have launched this product, right? Because I think, you know, obviously I have the history of being very involved with maintenance departments and records and scheduled maintenance, unscheduled maintenance, and all that good stuff. And I know the importance of these maintenance records. And so, you know, I think that you guys are providing this value of keeping those records safe. And there's kind of like the selling point of like, you know, hey, what happens if these records are lost or there's a fire or something like that, which is kind of like, I'll say it's kind of like a doom and gloom type selling point. It's one of those things where you want to protect yourself, but all of the capabilities that you're then providing just more on a day-to-day basis, I think is where there's a lot of value for customers, because getting back to those records to do research on, you know, part numbers, or, you know, when an item was installed, or identifying an STC or whatever it may be. These are just super valuable things for just day-to-day, you know, processes and operations within a flight department, right?
Yeah,
Greg,
go ahead.
Greg, yeah, just I think you that's a really good point. One of the things that we had a hunch about, but we didn't know how big was. Well, first we didn't know how long this COVID situation is going to last, but the mobility and the being remote has really played into being one of the big successes of Bluetail, because we have customers telling us, hey, I didn't need to drive 45 minutes into the hangar to look at the records. I looked at them online.
Sure.
We have stories of people buying, you know, suitcases and putting binders in it, FedExing boxes across the country for an inspection or something. It's just like, we had no idea all these user stories and the need was out there. So this whole mobility, I mean, not only are people remote, but like work now is remote. And so I think it's just adds to the, you know, the value of what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to add, which we've talked about before, Roberto likes to talk about just, having started other businesses. When you get into a business, you don't always know when you're going to end up, right? This happens all the time, right? And I'm not saying that our original value proposition is incorrect. So you start with the value proposition that it's protection, right? It's, you're putting all the records in an FAA approved, system to protect them, in case the bad things happen, right? So that was the original premise, and that's still a very powerful premise that people get right away. And let's face it, DOMs and folks have been going out in support of audits and other maintenance events and doing on-site scanning and things like that. So was that really rocket science? No, I mean, you see the app. Yeah, we've done some really good things. We've got all the bells and whistles that you would find in a content management system. So that was the good part. But where I'm going is, once we've gotten into it and you get your first 10 customers, right? And then they start giving you all kinds of feedback. And we've got a great cross section, whether it's, 125, 135 operators. We've got corporate flight departments. We've got flight schools. We've got owner pilots like Berta was talking about. You start to really get into the use cases and see some of the real challenges that aren't really being addressed. And that's where I think, that was kind of the first aha moment 6 months into this, that we've been really exploiting. And one of the reasons we raised money to really go and run with just new product features that are around like business process automation, auto organization, beyond search, things like that are true productivity enhancers that address additional problems beyond just the protection piece. And that's, if you want to look at where we're going with Bluetail and the product, it's, not to get too wonky, but when you look at, like, say, an old aircraft that's got 20, 30 bankers boxes, because that's our currency, right? So, 2,000 images a box, 60,000 images, what are you going to do with those images? Do you want to spend 60 hours of time going through and not only scanning, but then auto indexing and organizing? And if you can have, let the robots do it, and obviously they can't do everything, but if they can do 80% of that moving forward and you reduce that time, so the labor costs, and then you get that airplane certified, conformed quicker. I mean, these are all big challenges that the small operators face, the larger operators face. And that's where we really think, there's so much more opportunity beyond just that core premise. And that gets back to, again, we didn't really know that going in. Now that we're in there and our customers are telling us, they're absolutely telling us, you're on the right track, keep doing this. And that's
Cool.
Exactly what we're going to keep doing.
Cool. And so, you guys are, new company, new product, kind of new, I'll say, niche in this industry, right? And to me, I've always looked at it as an industry that's pretty tight knit. It's not been easy for new entrants to make their way and be successful in the industry, because it takes a lot of trust. And so, how are you guys feeling about that as you've brought a new product into this industry? How have you gotten your first few customers, and how do you look at continuing to sell this product and growing in the industry?
Yeah, so I warned Berto, having done this in the, when you buy a new simulator, a very expensive simulator, you get it certified in your program, and then you wait for the phone to ring, and then you got investors looking at you like, what the heck's going on? I kind of warned Berto that, unless you're one of the big three training companies, or the phone's not going to ring. You got to go make it happen. So some of the same things that I did in those prior experiences that I mentioned. Okay, so relationships, right? You already mentioned this, Chris. So I've been doing this a while. I know some people. So you just reach out to some close associates, people you trust, and we'll give you honest feedback. Won't blow smoke. So we did a lot of that early on. Prior to launching the company, we talked to a lot of these people across the ecosystem of business aviation, MROs, pilots, A&Ps, you name it. We went, underwriters, lenders. We talked to all these people. So when we finally launched, you call in some favors, you make some phone calls, and you just want to throw it out there, right? So get that initial reactions. And that was a big part of it, just to get those, like I said, those first 10 customers on, get their feedback. And I tell you, it's a scary moment until you get that first order and then you get that first feedback. But we went out there and did that. We leveraged those relationships. There's it's the beauty of business aviation or aviation in general, which Roberto likes given his marketing background, is you know where the prospects are, right? You know who owns the aircraft, who's operating the aircraft. There's some great resources you can do, some direct marketing, through some online tools and some old traditional things. So we've leveraged all that. We've done some surveys. So just a lot of basic blocking and tackling that you would do. But again, knowing that, it was going to be a challenge, and it certainly was. And it's definitely not where it was, year and a half ago. The phone actually rings now that we've gotten some visibility out there. We've got, a fair amount of customers now, but it was a huge challenge getting that part done. And I think you'd agree with that, right, Berto?
Yeah. Greg, can I get a little philosophical with you?
Oh,
go right ahead.
I know. So we Stuart and I were trying to come up with what's our corporate culture, and all we could do is think about laughter. Like you gotta have a good sense of humor to do this. But one that really popped up, and it goes to your point about trust, and philosophically, I think where trust starts to break down is when you have lack of transparency, when you start to hide the issues that you have, and you're not who you say you are. And we have been extremely transparent with our pricing. When we make mistakes with our customers, we face them. We've got an incredible veteran on our team, Roy Giaconda, who's been in the industry a while. He's our VP of Customer Success. He heads on all the issues we have right up with the customer, calls them, shares with them, and our customers have been given us incredible feedback. But I think transparency is the key to building trust, and we'll tell you when we're making mistakes, and we'll be happy to get a pat on the back. But we want the industry, in my view, wasn't as transparent as I thought it was. Maybe it is in other aspects of the space, but at least from what we're doing, we're an open book. We're not perfect, but we're learning as we go, and we're making incredible strides. And our customers are telling us, "Thank you for calling us. Thank you for giving us a chance to speak about the product and what we like and what we don't like." So that's our culture. And the shameless plug, we are hiring after our financing. So we'd love to have great people join our team.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, the transparency aspect of it is really key. I think with a lot of the companies that a lot of operators deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether they've reached a certain size or they maybe have a different approach to business, the ability to just call somebody, talk to them about what you're actually experiencing, have them take that feedback right back to a product team, and to see that, the results of that come out in a new release and have that impact their day to day, positively. There's just not that much of that going on. It's there's definitely companies that are doing it. But I think for a lot of operators, it's like a breath of fresh air. And so I'm sure that they really appreciate that. And, when it comes to, I guess, building your team, you had mentioned Roy, which, I know Roy has been around, in this industry for a long time. I know that you started building up some more team members. You brought on some board members. How has that process been for you? I know that right now, just in general, everybody's looking to hire for the
Mhm.
most part, and it's a really competitive market. So how are you guys approaching that?
So I'll just say a couple quick things, and Berto, you can jump in. So part of it is, I guess, serendipity. So like Roy, for example, can I say that the guy was trolling us? Maybe. I love that word. But no, I'm kidding. So Roy, Roy was at one of the big maintenance tracking companies, and he was one of those guys, and I don't want to get into too many details, but I can just say that let's just say that he always loved the idea of Bluetail. And he was talking to certain folks about maybe trying to do certain things that we're doing now, and kind of fell on deaf ears. So when he left that company and he went to an operator, and I think he was following us, it was just like, man, I got to get over there and help those guys. And we always joke that, well, thanks, because you're like 3 months late, right? There were some fires burning, in January. I think he joined in March, and we always like to make that joke. So somebody like him and a couple of the other folks that came on board, just, it was kind of like one of those, I can't believe somebody else hasn't done this sooner kind of thing. So they wanted to be part of it. And then we shared our vision, and, you hit it off, and you work out the numbers, and it's a startup, and, there's just not a whole lot of new stuff, happening, and maybe in the software space. So there's been some of that going on. And then certain things like the VP of application delivery, that's one that Berto took on, which was another one. We probably needed that 3 months earlier, just because, what we're trying to do with the product and manage different teams and all that. And that was just a local hire that kind of just fell into our lap. And Berto, you can speak more of that, because that's been just another like game changing, person that, you talk about, hiring salespeople and customer. That's hard. Try hiring some engineers right now, and not spending everything you raised in your round to do it, right? So, Berto, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that piece, because there's been a lot of little nuances to putting that together, but we've been really thankful the way it's come together.
I mean, I think, Greg, you guys built a great product. You could even ask Stuart. When I first saw what you guys did years ago, I was like, wow, that company gets UI. I kudos to you guys. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And one of the things that, we were talking about with hiring engineers and things like that, any executive out there will say the most important word you can say is no. I mean, there is so much opportunity, so many features you can build, so many integrations, and you just got to say no to a lot of it and stay focused on your core. It's not easy, that, and we've been pretty good at that. And so hiring our engineers it's been tough, but so we've got a good mix of in-house and outsource, but we've got a good quality assurance person on board now that really focuses in on all our testing before we launch, and so it's been great. And being in SaaS is phenomenal, because I know a lot of customers out there don't understand this, but it's in the old days. You want to talk about pressure? You were pressing your software on a CD or DVD or putting it in a box and putting it on a shelf. That's scary. Now we're launching a new piece of software every month. We don't charge the customers for it. They're getting all these great upgrades. So, I mean,
and if there's something small with it that you had missed, a lot of the fixes that happen with a release can happen in just a couple of hours. And so it's quite a nice thing. And I definitely know what you're talking about in regards to, I'll say, saying no, which is kind of like, everybody, I think there's a lot of talk about just say no. Like the more you say no, the more successful you'll be, things like that. I mean, obviously I'll say there's a balance to it, right? In that as a startup and trying to build your customer base and build happy customers, there's a lot that you have to say yes to. I think it's important to distinguish what really takes you off of your core product and your roadmap. And if you get too far off track, I think that's where a lot of companies, they start getting pulled in a lot of different directions. And at the end of the day, then they're realizing they develop these one-off things for one customer, and it's not helping them in scaling up their business and selling to more and more operators
That's a
in
good point.
their segment, right? And so
Yeah, great point.
I think it's a really difficult thing to do. I think the really important thing is that having a cohesive team where you have people like Roy that are out there in the industry. They understand the customers. They're getting a lot of good feedback, communicating directly with development teams, directly with senior leadership and executives, and making decisions that make sense for the company in the long term. Because I think it's just I think that's how really good products are ultimately built.
Yeah,
But
we agree.
yeah. So, you guys had mentioned that you just brought on a new investment. So this is your first Series A. Went out to I guess it's venture capital. And can you tell me, as I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, business owners, there's a bit of hesitation sometimes to look at outside investment. They think, there's obviously there's a lot of reasons to be, skeptical or to think through it. But can you tell me what your experience is? This isn't your first rodeo in building a business. What's your experience in going out, getting investment, and using that to build the company?
Yeah, Stu, you want me to take first crack?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So it's a big decision. It's one that I think entrepreneurs should not take lightly. But
Sure.
well, I think one of the things I've learned is, this may sound a little arrogant, but money's easy to get. Finding the right partner that writes that check is the hard part. There's plenty of money in this country to like build your dream, build your product,
Right.
build your service. Finding the right person is absolutely the key. I would say spend more time on interviewing the person that you're about to partner with. The money is, we kind of get blindsided with the dollar signs and the commas, right?
Sure.
And so Brookstone, which was formerly Canal Partners, has an incredible record of, they saw the SaaS movement 20 years ago, and they have been invested in so many different avenues of SaaS, and the guys are just really high quality. They're good people. They're very well connected. They love aviation. In fact, they've been looking at aviation, an investment, for a while. They just couldn't find anything solid enough until we came along. And
Sure.
Todd Belfer is the principal there. He's an incredible guy, visionary, got a lot of great ideas, but just, I think, focus more on the person writing it rather than the commas. So when we found that, Stuart and I were like, going back to that serendipitous thing, it's like, okay, we've got a really good partner now. And so what do you do with the money? So Stuart and I have always been on the same page about three things when you raise money. You got to stabilize, serve, and scale. And so stabilize just means there's storms coming. There always is in business, in building a company or building a product. So you want your foundation strong. So that's, the team needs to be strong. The security on your app, I mean, everything just foundationally has to be locked down. That's where you go first. Without happy customers, happy fans, what are you going to do? So then you talk about building a team of service people, and it's all aspects. Everybody's a service person in the company. And then scale, which is really what the venture capitalists want, is you can't you can't scale if your foundation is rickety. You can't scale if your customers are unhappy and you don't have referenceable accounts. So you got to do those two things first before you scale. And so we've got a good chunk of the first two going. We've still got a lot of work to do, but we're really talking about scaling now into different channels and integrations and partners. And Stu, maybe you can talk about some of that growth opportunity that we have. But that's kind of our philosophy on raising money.
Yeah, and just the only thing I'd add is, 3 years, I think you said two, Berto, that more like 3 years when we kind of sat down, we were specking all this out, you don't do, it's funny, I kind of dated myself. I started doing like a 60-page business plan. You don't do those anymore. Berto corrected me. He's like, no, we do a deck. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants. So we did a 20-slide deck, right? But so you lay out all your goals. What's the product going to do? What's your hiring going to look like? What's your timing? What are you committing to the market? What's your pricing going to be? Everything. Then you're thinking about, well, what's, because we were bootstrapping this, initially just, on a whim. We did it out of our own pocket to get started. Then we raised some seed money, but we had a plan in place, kind of, which we talk about all the time. We're not too far off that original plan we did 3 years ago for what we wanted to do. And we did have a really, we didn't say definitively we were going to raise VC money at this stage, but we had a pretty good hunch we would if we achieved certain milestones. So I think that's part of the answer to your question, Greg, that, that if we did X, Y, and Z, and then, you heard me talking about, all these new opportunities once we got into this. And man, you want to build out a product, you want to expand geographically, you want to maybe, do all these other things. That takes capital, even
Sure.
staying within your core business, because there's so much opportunity that we couldn't bootstrap it. We couldn't do it just on the seed money. So if you want to go and build those moats, get the land grab, all those business things we like talking about, you really do have to do that. So it was, it was kind of, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but it really validated what we originally suspected that we wanted to go and do that. So, I just thought I'd add that piece that it's really
Sure.
in line with what we thought we'd do. So.
Yeah, sure. And I think in the past, as we've looked at bringing on partners, we took a very similar type of look at it in regards to, for a long time we were a bootstrapped company at Flight Docs. It took us 14 years to bring on outside investment, and so when we did that, it was a huge decision for us. And the money aspect of it was somewhat secondary, but we were really looking for a partner that would allow us to take things to the next level. And so we were really looking at scaling up, in particular, our development team, our sales and marketing team, and then building out some more of our executive leadership team. And so, that's where we kind of use that capital. But in bringing on a partner that helped us in giving us direction, and they've done, these companies have been involved with companies that they invest in. They've done this, hundreds, or in some cases thousands of times, and they can really help in pointing you in the right direction. But obviously, you need to make sure that you're comfortable with who you're partnering with. And that first example I'm giving here is with Argentum, who's out of New York. At the point we took an investment from them, we were a little bit larger. We had, like I said, we had been around for some time, and they were really able to kind of point us in the right direction to, how do we take this company to the next level? They also provided support for, they really helped us with our business development and helping us get some larger, partnerships, getting us connected with people. So there's a lot of benefits that come with these partnerships outside of the dollars. And it's not always somebody constantly looking over your shoulder or questioning every decision that you're making. You really want to partner with somebody that believes in the direction that you're going and is really just going to add to help you take it to the next level.
Yeah, no, and it gets back to what Berto said about finding the right partner and having somebody that's really working in your best interest. And yeah, certainly in the business development, we bounce all kinds of strategy development ideas off our VCs, off the board in general. They've been extremely helpful, and they're connected people, right? So
Yeah.
everything's connected to business aviation now. So case in point, last week, one of our minority investors makes an intro for, if I give you too many clues, you'll know who it is. But let's just say they've got, 10 aircraft, airliner kind of aircraft, and he knew these folks from a previous life, and he was able to make that introduction. So they're friends. Take a look at this, and of course, then we had the initial meeting. There was some really good reception. Now we're going to do a follow-up meeting and bring all the maintenance folks in, all the operations folks. And we've had 3 or 4 intros like that now, just through those folks, because, money people, they all have aircraft. With all the stuff that's happening in business aviation right now, right? All these new plays, whether it's Joby or Archer, and I can't even follow all these companies, but
Yeah.
all these guys are using capital. They're in Silicon Valley, they're elsewhere, and they're talking to people. And of course, all those folks are going to need what we offer too. And that's a whole separate topic. But just, the point being is that it's all kind of connected. These folks all run in the same circles, and they're really trying to, because it helps their investment, and they know we appreciate the leads. And so that's been really good too. And, and then as we look at like some of these new partnerships, whether it's, some big technology partnerships, some people we're talking to, which we're excited about. We're talking to some of the OEMs finally, now that we've got the word out there and we think the product's really ready, we can bounce some ideas off them. And it's really important to have, even though we've been doing this, it seems like forever, you can never have too many great opinions, right? That's how things get done. That's how you make the right decisions. How you say no, or you say, yeah, let's look at this more cautiously and try to make it happen, but let's do it this way. So all that stuff has been very beneficial through the board.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, kind of dovetailing off of that, is there's a lot of influencers in this industry, and so you have the opinion, and from your direct customer, but there's a lot of people that are talking to your direct customers, whether they're service centers or the OEMs or their neighbors or whoever they may be. And so, constantly, doing that networking, talking with all the different players in and around your customers is just really key for continuing to build that brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I'm sure the last couple of weeks and probably the last few months have been super busy for you guys as you've brought on this investment. How are you? What are you looking at for, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months out? Where's Bluetail going from here?
So yeah, just a couple quick points, and then we've talked a little bit about that. It's a bit of a land grab at this point, with the money, and you want to spend your money wisely. So it's getting more sales folks in place. It's investing more in the product. It's accelerating those efforts through some additional resources. So it's just doing, what we were doing on a small scale, much larger. So it's hitting those metrics that you committed to, those growth metrics. So, I think you'll see, with NBAA coming up here, we've got some announcements where we're going to be expanding into some new geographies. There's some things that we've been talking about beyond search that builds on our mock platform, around auto organization and just some kind of, some business process automation stuff like I've been talking about. So we'll make some announcements there, and with new product features, if there's some people that have been maybe waiting to talk to you, that it's going to help in that regard. So you'll just see us doing a lot more, of the stuff that we've been doing. We'll be doing it faster, more aggressively. and the new hiring in there. And, there's a lot of moving pieces. And one other area I might add too, that, at the end of the day, it's not required today. It's not like, when I was in the training business, you had to have your annual recurrent training, right? 6158 if you're a pilot. There's no 6158 in the records world. And we joke about it all the time. There's an advisory circular that recommends that you digitize everything. There's guidance around that. So to the degree that we can work with the industry, whether that's the FAA, some of the other, regulatory agencies, or some of the international equivalents, or some of the business organizations, the lenders, the underwriters, that this clearly benefits them, the broker associations, that we're going to be doing a lot more outreach to those folks. And even if we get some of our competitors involved, with the old, rising tide lifting all boats, there could be an element of, I'm not saying that this is going to be mandatory at some point, but it would be nice and certainly a game changer for us. So the more we can do to kind of help, control our own destiny, through maybe some industry memberships and some outreach programs, and just, making these guys aware, making everyone aware of what the technology is now that wasn't out there 5 or 10 years ago, that there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing here too. So I think that could really help us and maybe be that, proverbial tipping point that really, takes us maybe a lot farther beyond where we thought we would be, say 2 years, 3 years from now. So I don't know, Berta, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think we talk a lot about, we're big Malcolm Gladwell fans, especially his books, and the tipping point we talk a lot about is, we're working on things that you just never know how that tipping point's going to happen. But we've gone into demos, Greg, where people go, yeah, I know, digitize your records, you're protected, and sure, that's great. And then then we show them the app and how you can search for serial numbers, part numbers, paint colors, interior designs and burn certs and all. I mean, they're like, wow, that's just, I didn't know it did this. And then we have a timeline feature that lets you look at your records in a visual timeline from start to finish. So it's kind of like, so by the time they're done with the demo, they're like, wow, I just thought this was kind of like a backup system. And that's kind of where it started. But our vision to hopefully make that tipping point is all about investing in the product. And that comes from Stuart and I's Apple days. Is the product is the best marketing you can do. I can spend millions of dollars on PPC and events and this and that. The product is the best marketing in the world. And we learned that at Apple, and we're striving for it today. And hopefully someday, Greg will say, yeah, you remember that when we talked about the tipping point, and maybe over a beer or iced tea or whatever. Well, and that would be nice.
And I think, one of the things obviously is on your side here is that you have a very nice looking product. It's clean, it's modern. And in aviation, there's a lot of platforms out there that, the maintenance guys, the pilots, they're used to using pretty outdated technology in a lot of their day-to-day lives. And so, a lot of the functions that software providers are looking to tackle, and the problems that they're looking to solve in this industry aren't necessarily simple problems, right? And so without a good eye for design and really how does looking at the UI, looking at the UX, you can end up with a pretty complex product, and that ultimately will turn off these buyers. And so creating something that's clean, simple, easy to use, makes sense for their day-to-day use, I think is really key to any software provider's success in this industry especially, but obviously any industry out there, right? And
Greg, we call it delightful discovery. Like a user should go through an experience where they're delighted, and You don't need to have 25 pop-ups telling them what to do. And
Sure.
there's a lot of good examples of companies doing it really well today. And delightful discovery is something we really strive for.
Cool. Well, awesome. It was really nice talking with you guys. I'm excited about what you guys are doing for the industry and for the operators out there. I think it's definitely making a difference in a couple different areas. And so I appreciate you coming on. For anybody listening in, how can they find your company and you guys?
Yeah, so real easy. Go to the website, Bluetail, like it sounds, BLUETAIL.aero, AERO is our website. A lot of good content on the website. Let's see, you could just send an email for a demo if you want to check it out. Sales@bluetail.aero. It's real easy. Phone number is published on the website. We got a toll-free number, but nobody calls anymore. So.
But somebody's there to talk to you if they want to call.
But boy, are we getting calls, since the funding announcement, and let's just say there's a lot of products and services out there that I wasn't even aware of. But no, that'd be a great way to contact us. And Greg, we really appreciate talking to you and hearing a little bit about your background and some similarities, and always love the opportunity to tell our story and promote the brand and company. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Greg. Same here. Thank you. Your new venture is great, and it's needed in the industry, and we look forward to helping wherever we can. And let's keep in touch, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys for coming on and joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great rest of the week. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.